Alright, a little bit of change of scenery in this video. Welcome back. This is part 7 of the tail cone build for my RV14A. And this video is going to cover mostly electrical for the wiring harness that goes through the tail cone section for the RV14. Most of this is wiring that goes back for your electric trim tab on the elevator. Also, it's for the aft lighting, the strobe light on the tail for the tail light, and then there's some other cables that you end up running later on for some of the antennas and whatnot. And this is my dad come out, and he, as often he does, he'll come out and watch, see what I'm doing, where I'm at on the build, and just kind of get an idea for what I'm working on. But I've got my heat gun there, that little orange device on the table there, and it's a type that you can set on its end like that. And if you go out and get yourself a heat gun, I do recommend those because they're a lot easier to use as you're using both hands to hold the wire with the heat shrink tubing or whatever you're using. Makes it a lot easier. But it also has a shield that attaches to the end of it that kind of cups around and over so that you can put wire underneath there, and it puts heat on all sides of whatever you're trying to shrink onto the wire. Makes things a lot easier, and that way you're not sitting there trying to rotate everything as you're going along. It wasn't too expensive. I think I found it off Amazon for maybe 20 or 40 bucks, something like that. But it's got a couple different settings, temperature settings and fan speed settings. It's a decent enough tool. But also, as you see sitting on the table there is a label printer. It works on both regular tape labels, but also you can use heat shrink labels on the device. It's taking me a little bit of getting used to trying to figure out how to label vertically, horizontally. They basically try to lay out the lettering and numbers the way I want and have them the size I want. So it takes a little bit of figuring out, but it's a pretty decent device. I want to say it was around 150 bucks for the printer, and the cartridges you can get several different sizes for different types of wires and size wiring that you're using. But basically, you type in what you want, you program the size and the orientation and everything, and then it prints it out. You cut it off and put it on the wire, and then I use the heat gun to shrink it onto the tubing or onto the wiring. The idea is that, as I've discussed in previous videos, my grandfather-in-law built an RV4, and when he did the wiring on his, basically used masking tape, and over the years it degrades, and now you have no idea really of which wire is which other than to trace it out. The tape wears away, it fades off, it's not usable after some amount of time. So I decided I wanted to label all of my wiring. I'm an electrician by nature, so I like to be able to trace my wires, but then once they're in place, I like to be able to look at the wire and see which wire I'm looking at. So I figured the heat shrink method would be the easiest and longest lasting, and so far it's not been too terrible. So as I said, I'm working on this wiring harness, and I come across some issues, and that's what I'm looking at now, is trying to figure out the leads don't look correct. Looking at the plug that goes through the forward wall that connects to the rest of the fuselage, it's got a pin in there that's supposed to have a lead, according to the diagram and the drawings in the instructions. But when I look at it, and that's what I'm looking at here, it's not there. The pin space is empty. And so I went over it quite a while, tried to figure out how to fix it. Because to order something from Vans usually takes 3 to 5 days, depending on which day of the week I order it. And so I was trying to see if maybe it's something that I can fix and just splice in a wire and put the pin in. I'm taking an avionics course at the moment, so this is kind of where we're working on is making wiring harnesses. And so it would have been simple enough to take it into into class and make a pin for this. Well, I called Vans and got a hold of them, sent them some emails with pictures, and come to find out that there's actually a revision. The wiring harness was redesigned. They moved what the wire that was missing was a shielding wire ground. In other words, the shielding wire that's part of the harness, the shield itself is grounded, and that's to try to remove any kind of electrical noise basically from the wiring. And according to the diagram, it was grounded at the forward pin or forward connector. And apparently they have changed that. Now it's grounded at the tail section, closer to the tail light. And so they removed the pin and the wiring for the shield grounding at the forward end, at the connector at the forward end. And so after finally figuring all that out and going through, it finally made sense, and I was able to go forward. But it took a few phone calls with Vans and some verifications, and they've actually got the correct diagram on the website. If you go to the support drop-down menu, and then there's I think downloads or something like that, it's actually got the corrected drawing, I believe, on the website there. So if you come across that, just realize that it's a revision and it's a change, and your instructions may not be updated yet. And as always, Vans is extremely helpful. Just get in touch with them, describe what your issue is, and they're very good with trying to help you out and set you forward. So the rest of the video is going to be just working on a little bit more of the electrical portion, getting everything straightened out and tidied up. In the next couple of videos, I'll start putting the side skins on and getting the tail cone itself put together, and it goes pretty quickly from here on out. Some of the harder parts is just making sure that you're routing the wiring correctly based on how the instructions show everything. But for the most part, it goes pretty quick, and it makes sense. So they did a real good job with this section here. So anyway, again, thank you for following these videos. If you have any questions, by all means, leave me a comment. I do these for my own entertainment, but also for anyone that's interested and just wants to get an idea of what the construction process is like. This is more of just kind of let you in on the world of building your own aircraft. So if you get a chance, hit the like button for me, and that helps hopefully some others come across these videos, and maybe some will gain interest. We'll see you next time.